Hello, welcome to another Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. This week we learned that our podcast does better on Spotify when I include headshots of you and me in the thumbnail. Why are you like this, YouTube?
We're just so good looking that people can't help but click, man.
It's truth in advertising, I guess.
Yeah.
So I would ask how you're doing, but I know you're not doing that well, my friend.
Yeah.
You've
was going
fallen,
for
but you did get up.
I did get up. I was going for a run on Sunday and literally like there's a crack in the road. Couldn't be more than an inch raised on that crack. And my stride as my foot came down was just right that I just clipped that. And with all my momentum, I just went flying forward and managed to smoke my kneecap directly onto the pavement and bust open all the skin around my knee. And thankfully didn't break it or even crack my kneecap, which is amazing to me considering how much it hurts. It sure feels like it's cracked, but it's bruised about as much as my ego was bruised. And let's see, I got scrapes and bruises on both my palms because, of course, you try and catch yourself. Yep. So that happened. And then I had to get a tetanus shot. And so my shoulder is sore now, but, who can complain? Other than that, I'm doing great.
So I'm also a runner, and I've also just completely bit it almost for no apparent reason. I was running in Florida when I was visiting my parents, and it was one of those fancy, like not truly real cobblestone type paver streets, and just I dragged a foot on one of my strides and I bit it, and I bit it in front of two people. It looked like a mother and a daughter. And so I was embarrassed. So I popped right back up. And then I just had to stand there for like 30 seconds because I was able to twist and I landed on my hip.
Yeah.
But the older you get, the longer it takes to bounce back from that stuff. I think I felt that bruise for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know how long this one's going to take to recover, but I'm not expecting a super speedy recovery from this one. I'm not going to be running anytime soon, I suspect, which is a challenge when you're used to it and like you feel good about it. Like it's a kind of an important part of my current mental state. And so not being able to do any kind of exercise for a while is definitely going to take its toll, but what can you do? I did
Tales of the literally arthritic.
Yeah. And I did fall right in front of somebody, and the guy, I'm almost thankful the guy didn't even like come over to check on me or anything, which I feel like I'm actually okay with it. Like it kept my pride intact that I didn't need somebody coming over and asking me how I was doing. But I do run, like when I run in my neighborhood, I've got like a real winding bunch of different roads I run on, and some of them are closer to my house and a couple of them are fairly far from my house. And I'm just thankful I did it on a part that was pretty close to my house so I could walk back home fine, but that's one of those things when you're in denial as you're walking back and you think like maybe it's not so bad and you haven't really looked at the wound in your knee that closely yet.
Yeah.
And then you get home and you go to clean it up and you look at it and you're just like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? But
getting old sucks.
Yes. But, other than being in agonizing pain anytime I move my leg, I'm happy to be podcasting. So
did you stay up super late last night for the Taylor Swift Tortured Life of a Showgirl Reputation album announcement?
So it's funny is I didn't actually realize she was doing an album announcement. I didn't hear about it, but I did see New Heights post their little silhouette of her and saying they were going to have a special guest, and they said stay calm or something like that. It was like, okay, I wonder who it is,
Yeah.
So I didn't realize it was for an album announcement. And then
Their
when I woke
Rolodex
up this morning,
is a little bit better than ours for podcast guests.
I think they will get more viewers on that episode than we will get in all of our episodes combined times 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I could bring my wife on the podcast sometime, but she's not particularly notable in the Taylor Swift kind of way. And I don't think I'm even insulting her when I say that.
Well, I mean, who knows, right? But yeah.
Yet. Life is long. Growth mindset.
Yeah, there you go. I did think too, like, it was kind of funny though, when I saw this morning that she had an album, it was like, because there's you can't help but see people talk about, when's Taylor going to be on New Heights? Like this was a thing I had seen, And the cynical side, people always said, well, just wait till she has a new album. It needs to be transactional for her in order to be on the podcast.
Ouch.
And it's like, well, here we are. But neither you nor I are Swifties per se, but we've talked about
No.
Taylor Swift a decent amount. For one thing, if you have a music podcast, you have to talk about Taylor Swift. It's part of the contract we have to sign with the music gods. But in general, like, I don't know. It's always interesting when she's got a new album coming, I think. Everybody's going to pay attention, and it's going to get a huge part of the cycle, and it's going to suck up a lot of the oxygen. I don't know. It's interesting to see, like, what direction is she going to take with this album?
I always think about all the capacity she's going to take up in every vinyl production factory across America. And honestly, I always feel that there's, especially since she started dating Travis Kelce, it hits a little close to home because every time they visit Travis's family in Cleveland, there's like a Taylor Swift sighting near my house because the restaurant they came to in Cleveland the last time they were in town, that was like big news. Apparently they were house hunting as well.
I saw the
And
house
that's all.
hunting things. They could be your neighbors, Craig.
I mean, they could be because it's essentially my current hometown.
Yep.
Is where they ate and where they were looking. So a different part of the neighborhood than where I live. They probably won't choose the cluster home neighborhood where I live, but
again, who knows?
Maybe they'll buy 3 or 4 of them, you know?
They want the HOA life, you know?
Could you imagine, Taylor, it's your turn to be treasurer of the HOA?
Yeah. Travis sending out notices to people for delinquent payments and upkeep, you know? Yeah.
I'm sorry, we can see your garden from the street. You're going to have to move it or otherwise obscure it. God, HOAs are kind of the worst.
I hate it. I have an HOA and I just hate it.
Have you ever served on the HOA?
No, I haven't. I try to be invisible as much as I can. I pay my annual. So ours is just an annual fee. Mm-hmm. So I pay that. And
everybody hates the HOA, but if you've ever, and I haven't served, but my wife has, and what you realize is that you are the HOA. It's not them, it's us.
Yeah, for sure. It is. Your neighbors are the HOA.
And you. Technically, you are a member.
That's right. Yep.
All right. So one of the things that I forgot to touch on a couple weeks ago, I did see the Avett brothers in my Chautauqua concert season. Not much to talk about. I'm not a huge Avett brothers fan. I probably like their top 5 songs, but it's like, even if they're the kind of band that even if you don't really enjoy that kind of music, they're so good at it. And if you happen to see them do it live, you're going to be drawn in. They're just that good.
I really think that, I've never been to Chautauqua, but it sure sounds from talking to you all these years about this concert series, really seems like a great way to see a lot of artists like this. Like, cause it's like, I mean, I don't know what you pay for those concerts, but to me, it seems relatively low stakes for a concert. Like, you're there more to just chill and hang out and maybe find some songs that you like. It does, it's not a high investment like when you go to see a band that you love and you really want to make sure that it's a great show and you're like invested in every aspect of the show. Like, sometimes it's nice to have a concert where you can just go and kick back and not care that much. And to me, that's
let me tell you about how it works. Because so there's a 9-week season and you have to buy a gate pass in order to get in. And if you buy a concert ticket, obviously you can get in and go to the show as well. But as part of my gate pass, I have a general admission ticket to every show in the amphitheater, every lecture, every show. There's some additional opportunities and different plays and things that you can pay extra to go see. Mm-hmm. But I essentially get a ticket to every show in the amphitheater, every orchestra concert. When Leve comes, I can go to Leve. When Avett Brothers come, I can go to Avett Brothers. And so, it's, I remember growing up, I would go see Johnny Mathis with my mom, or Peter, Paul and Mary, or the Allman Brothers came once. That's when I saw Air Supply as a kid. Like, would I have ever gone out of my way to see Air Supply? No, but they were right there. So I went and saw Air Supply. And when I was 6 or 7, they were awesome. I loved them.
Yeah. And I think if there was a way that you could like sit down and like really write out every band you've ever seen, you would have one of the most eclectic books of concerts attended out of it, like anybody. And a lot of it is a lot of these shows you've seen over the years. I mean, you've seen a lot of eclectic shows anyways, but
sure.
But the Chautauqua series definitely adds another level to that. So let me ask you this. First of all, is this season over? Do you have more yet this year?
There's more yet, but it collides with my kids' school calendar, so I'm not there.
Okay.
But I'm going back for OAR is coming. And again, OAR is a good band. I like them, but I wouldn't go out of my way to see them except they're going to be 2 blocks from my house.
Okay.
So I'll go back.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this then. More or less, we'll say this season is mostly wrapped. Is this your favorite season? Because I feel like you've talked more about the shows you saw this year. And part of it is us doing the podcast, of course. But even offline, like, outside of the podcast, just in our personal conversations, it seems like you've really talked about a lot of the shows this year more than like other years. There'd be like 1 or 2 shows you would really talk about, but it seems like you've really been energized by this year's series.
So this was one of the best years, not the peak years. So my peak years are the summer that I was probably 13 or 14 when 10,000 Maniacs played. And they're like the hometown band because they're from Jamestown, New York, which is 20 minutes around the corner. And so that was amazing. Getting to see Band of Horses there as one of my favorite bands.
That's a good...
And they opened up for the Revivalists, and the Revivalists were great too. But getting to see like your very favorite band in that really home schedule is the way to go. But this season has been one of the best in terms of front to back quality, top to bottom. It's been really amazing. Because then, I mean, to kick it off with Counting Crows, and as much as I love or don't love Avett Brothers, that's a huge get. OAR is a huge get for a venue of this size, and I didn't even mention Guster, who was surprisingly good. But so one of the things that came up, because my brother is his whole family is a huge Avett Brothers fan. And so one of the things that he's given me all the trivia that I didn't know. Seth Avett married a famous celebrity. You want to do like maybe not full 20 questions, but let's see if you can ask me some questions to figure out who it is.
So is it an actress?
Yes.
Okay. Who? Blonde hair? That's always a tricky question for actresses too, because But
Sydney Sweeney blonde most of the time?
Does she have good genes?
I'll skip that question. That's really funny though.
Oh, we don't want to go down that road? Okay.
Let's today.
See. I don't know what else to ask here. I'm so bad at these kind of things because I'm not great with celebrity pop culture. I don't know what to ask to narrow it down from actresses.
Well, normally you would ask, is she in movies or TV?
Okay, well, I'll ask that then.
She's most
if you
notable.
say both, I'm going to be pissed.
No, I mean, every actress is both, but she's most notable for TV.
Oh, okay. Is it an HBO series?
Yes.
Okay. Was it Game of Thrones? Oh, okay. All right. I think I'm out. I don't know.
All right. It was Dexter.
Okay. Wow. First of all, Dexter is not HBO.
Oh, it's Showtime.
It is Showtime.
My fault. I misled the witness.
But I'm not sure I would have thought of Dexter anyways. That's a show I've not thought about in quite a while. So naturally, is it his sister, Dexter's sister?
Jennifer Carpenter, who played Deb.
Okay. Nice.
Anyway, random, not quite music trivia that I had no idea before 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's the more you know.
And she was not there. We looked. We searched high and low to see if we could meet Deb.
I actually feel like that would be a good one to go to if you were a spouse, right?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. But
all right. So anyway, Avett Brothers, they were really good. The one thing that I would say about that show is they opened with a song called We Are Loved, which was just the two brothers by themselves with an acoustic guitar harmonizing. And when you open that strong, it's really hard to follow.
Yeah.
But they were really good. I would recommend that show to anybody, even non-fans. And that's high praise from me because like usually I've got a million qualifiers. Well, do you like alt country? Do you like country twinged music? But they were just super entertaining. It's a huge band. They're all amazingly talented. There's an incredible cello player who also sings backups. It's like they're for a group that relies on brothers, that's a real band.
Yeah. Nice.
So, all right, you and I were going to talk about a bunch of new songs. Most of them, I believe, are part of album release cycles.
Yeah.
We already talked about the first release, the first single that Deftones released. They released another song called Milk of the Madonna. You had some comparisons to their older career.
Yeah. So the first track, Something About a Mountain, I don't remember the name of the track.
My
I know
Mind is a Mountain
My
or
Mind is a
something.
Mountain. Yeah, that's exactly what
Sweet.
it is. I liked that song. I was not wowed by that song. And I think we talked about this a little bit. I just felt whelmed. Like, it's a very good Deftones song, but I felt
Mhm.
like you weren't getting much in terms of what the feel of the album was really going to be. Like, it's the first track on the album, and it just felt that way. Like, it was just an introductory kind of thing. Milk of the Madonna, to me, is I enjoyed this one a lot more. This was the song that really hooked me, and I was like, wow, okay. And what really kind of caught my ear was, to me, it sounded almost like a modern take on Be Quiet and Drive. Now, it's nobody's going to sit there and be like, oh, is this Be Quiet and Drive or a new song? Like, it's not like that, but it kind
Right.
of has the same structure to it a little bit, the same kind of build and vibe with it, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I think this one kind of gives us a little bit more of a table setting, I think, of what we can expect this album mostly to sound like. So I'm always excited for new Deftones, but this song has me more excited, more so than My Mind is a Mountain did.
So I think the song is really good. I like it a lot. In terms of Deftones, I love it when they're a little bit more slowcore. And so that first song really had that slower groove. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm drawn to. But this one's really good. Nobody writes vocal melodies like Chino.
It's unbelievable.
He is just as unique and distinct a vocalist as we have in rock music. I love how this song kind of drops out at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds and then
Mm-hmm.
just slams you right back over the head like 10 seconds
Yeah.
later. I thought that was really good. So I did look up, I wanted to see kind of what the community was thinking, and some of the Reddit commenters compared it to melancholy era Pumpkins, specifically Bodies.
Okay.
And then a lot of people and I don't know how much I buy this or how much I agree with it, but a lot of people feel that it was a lot of White Pony vibes.
Okay.
I'm not sure
I
that
don't know
I'd
that.
necessarily agree,
Yeah, I don't know
but
that I hear that. I'll have to listen to it again with that in my mind, but that definitely did never cross my mind in listening to the
all
song.
Deftones sounds like Deftones, so it's pretty
Yeah,
easy.
for sure. Also, I really think, like, we've talked about Steph Carpenter a lot in previous Deftones episodes. Like, he's a fascinating guitar player. And I would say there are phases of Deftones where he seems more engaged than others. And you can hear it sort of in his playing when he does more interesting things rather than just kind of playing a standard riff, if you will. And I really like some of the flourishes he threw into this new song. I thought he really added a lot of layering with, especially in the chorus part. He's really got this like sort of like almost like a weaving, like kind of like kind of like a wave where it's like rising and falling. It's a really interesting guitar part, and that kind of has me interested too to hear like how engaged is his guitar playing going to be on this album, because when he's on, he's an excellent guitar player. And again, just as nobody writes vocal melodies like Chino, like when Steph is really in his zone, he plays guitar in a very unique way. Like that Deftones guitar sound is really one of a kind when he's really doing his things. This has me excited to hear more of his guitar playing on this album too.
And we don't have to wait too much longer. Private Music by Deftones is out on August 22nd. So
Yeah, right
10
around the
days from
corner.
when we're recording.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the next song. I believe it was released today, right? AFI, Behind the Clock.
Actually, I think it was about a week ago. I think it was
Oh, okay.
it was
I
definitely
just
last week
I
sometime.
just missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So AFI has a new album, Silver Bleeds the Black Sun, coming out in October. I want to say like 3rd. I don't know how you would describe AFI to somebody that knows absolutely nothing about them. You would traditionally call them a punk band. Like, they started out in hardcore. They were essentially, they were a hardcore band, but like they don't sound like what you think of when you think of hardcore. But there are
they got kind of glammy.
well, and that happened more so later, but like very early, like their like probably their first 3 albums was pretty straightforward punk. But I always get like the guitars to me sounded hardcore, but Davy's vocals sounded more punk than hardcore, I guess, maybe. But then they started adding in sort of like these gothic punk and horror punk elements. After that, they did a couple albums that were very
horror
dark.
punk is perfect, by the way.
Horror.
I've heard
Like,
that before, but it didn't occur to me, but you're absolutely right.
yeah, The Art of Drowning, Black Sails on the Sunset, those are pretty goth or pretty horror punk albums, I would say. And then they sort of added like elements of emo, screamo, and more of a alternative sound with Sing the Sorrow, which is the album everybody knows. If you know an album by AFI, it's probably Sing the Sorrow. And then they go December Underground, which brought in new wave and synth. And I mean, they have been, after that, they've just gone more into glam pop. There's definitely some like pop rock elements in some of their later albums.
Power pop,
yeah, stuff like some of those later albums, which I didn't really get into maybe as much. But then I would say like their last couple albums, there was the self-titled The Blood album. That one was sort of a quote unquote return to form kind of sound. And then Bodies, which came out a couple of years ago, was sort of a return to the December Underground kind of style. But my point is, this is a band you never quite know what you're going to get, and never is that more true than with this new song. I was stunned so to back up and tell a little bit of backstory, but like in Spotify, it'll pop up and say, hey, an artist you like has a new song out. And when it did that for AFI and I clicked play on the song, at first I thought it was one of those things. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Where
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It's not actually that artist. It's just another artist that has the same name, and Spotify mistakenly puts it under the bigger artist's name for you and suggests it. I thought at first that's what happened. I saw, they do the little video clips, now where you can see on Spotify where you can see like the video clip playing. And when I saw the singer, I was like, oh, this definitely isn't AFI because that's not Davey Havok. And then it got to the chorus and I'm like, wait a second, this actually sounds like Davey. So then I go and look and like, yeah, this is actually AFI. This new song is this is like 80s British new
Sounds
wave.
Like The Cure.
Sounds like The Cure, yeah. Maybe even like David Bowie a little bit in there, like that kind of stuff. Like so surreal that's the direction they're going with. And I don't know how to, well, I'll let you describe Davey's look because I thought you had a pretty funny
you
pretty
sent
funny
me
reference point.
You sent me his latest picture and what he looked like, and the first thing I thought of was Ben Stiller from Dodgeball, the owner of Globo Gym.
Yeah.
He's got this wild hair and the giant handlebar mustache, and totally. And not that we care about people's looks and what they decide to do with their facial hair, but it was striking.
Yeah. And Davey is known for changing his appearance just as much as the band changes their sound, but he has always looked like Davey. This is the first time like I like really had to like stare at it to understand like how is this actually Davey? Like he looks so different. It's hilarious. And here's the thing, I think it's an awesome look. If I could pull off a look like that, I would totally rock that look. But you guys will just have to look it up if you're listening. Yeah,
I'm a dad with teenagers, and so I'm seeing all the choices kids are making in high school.
Yeah.
And so I'm very firmly in the get off my era in terms of like making statements with how you choose to do your hair or what you wear.
Sure.
Anyway, it's funny to me. But I don't judge much. I judge, I just don't say anything.
Yeah. To be kind, Davey has had some looks that I have not thought were great looks for him through the years. And I think this is one that actually suits him well. But anyways, to the music. So this song does not sound like anything AFI has done before. And I absolutely love it. I love this song. It took me a couple listens to get there because, again, I had to reconcile at first that this is the same band that, put out the album Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. This is the same Sing the Sorrow band. This is the same December Underground band. Like, these albums that really meant a lot to me when in my younger days. I couldn't believe it was the same band. But once I sort of reconciled that and really listened to the song, I actually think it's awesome. I love it. It's catchy in the parts that are supposed to be catchy. It's interesting in the parts that aren't supposed to be catchy. I'm actually more excited now to hear this album than I have been for an AFI album since Crash Love, which came out in 2009. And that album was a huge disappointment for me personally. So I'm hoping this one won't be that. But my point is just in terms of getting me excited for an AFI album, I have not been excited. I've listened to all of them. I've liked the last two more than like the 3 or 4 that came before that. But this one, I think I'm actually legitimately excited for. I don't know. What's your backstory with AFI?
Looking forward to it. I was never a big AFI fan. I always felt like I was supposed to like them a lot more than I actually did.
Yeah.
I saw them open up for Smashing Pumpkins before the pandemic. That was the same one where I saw the High Flying Birds. That was a weird show. High Flying Birds and AFI opening up for Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, that is a bizarre lineup.
But so I'm actually more intrigued to hear this record than I have been. But it's not so much that I hate this band or anything. It's more that I never felt enough from their music to dive in deep. But I did own that one AFI record that everybody owned.
When we did our episode of bands who have held the belt, which was our thing where we talked about bands that temporarily were our favorite band in the world. Yeah. I didn't think of AFI. I probably could have included them sometime around 2004 or 5, somewhere like shortly after Sing the Sorrow came out. And when December Underground came out, it was a polarizing album for a lot of their fans. That was like their full turn into this very like synthy electronic. It was a very different sound, but I thought they pulled it off great. I love to this day December Underground. And I thought that this was, to me, this was a band like, I was like, I even like their name, AFI, which stands for A Fire Inside. I was like, that is the perfect name for this band. They are pure passion. When we talked a little bit about last week about Tony Wolski's Singing in the Armed and how he was like screaming like the most important thing in the world that he had to say. I've always felt that way about Davies' vocals in AFI. So I loved this band for a very long time, but after December Underground, I really have not been in on this band since then. And so we're going on almost 20 years now of me not really listening to AFI as much. And it kind of makes me sad because I really loved this band. And so I'm just excited to be excited again.
Yeah, 2003, that's when Sing the Sorrow came out. And I was deep into the Death Cab, Postal Service, Mars Volta. I looked it up because I had to remember all the things that came out that year. The Shins, Shoots Too Narrow came out that year. Yeah. I was deep into that era,
Yeah. But
and like, also don't forget Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent.
Oh, that's right. But I do think I kind of think Sing the Sorrow was My Chemical Romance before My Chemical Romance. Like, I really think that album achieves a lot of the things that, well, My Chemical Romance was after that, right? Or am I misremembering my timeline? So. I feel like it was. The Black Parade, anyways, was certainly after 2003.
I just never felt like AFI hit the same heights emotionally as My Chemical Romance, and that's probably what I was missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge was 2004. Their debut came out in 2002. So yeah, that's same exact era.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, next on our list, Camp Trash, Signal Them In. This is a band that I probably only listened to because of you, and it got recommended to me on my Spotify because I liked a few songs in the past. I never dove deep into this band, even though I like their sound. They make a really appealing power pop. Before I looked it up, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like a slightly sloppier Weezer, and apparently everybody draws that comparison.
Yeah, I believe sometimes I get confused. And so this is the danger of doing a podcast, because sometimes you say things that you think to be true that may not be true. But I feel like Keegan Bradley in Camp Trash has talked in the past about how much he loved Weezer. So I think that's a well-known influence anyways. For me, the touch point for this band has always been Waves. I just hear so many similarities between Nathan Williams in what Camp Trash does. And this song, their new song, does nothing to change my mind on that. To me, that this new song, again, kind of sounds like Waves to me. I sort of bunch those two bands together as doing very much the same thing.
I just really love the guitar leads and the solos,
Yeah.
the almost purposeful imperfection of them, but still
Yeah.
very melodic, and I don't
And
know.
hooks. They got the hooks
Yeah,
too.
hooks for days.
Yep.
Anything else to say about
I
that?
do. Did they say when the was this for an album, or did they not say
I
for this one?
couldn't
Because I
find
didn't
anything on that one.
I didn't see anything about an album yet for this, so I'll be curious to see if they have something coming. But
Yeah,
yeah,
one of the
no, that's
records that I'm looking most forward to is up next. The third track from Pool Kids, Sorry Not Sorry. By the time this podcast is released, Easier Said Than Done will be out on August 15th. And I got to be honest, like, I like the song very much. It seemed a bit of a ponderous one to release, like
yeah.
a very middle of the album kind of a track that happens to be track number 6 in the almost in the exact middle of the album, and it doesn't mute my excitement. I was just kind of like, confused dog look, trying to figure out why they chose to release this one 2 days before the album comes out.
Yeah, it's interesting because the first two singles I would classify as the kids would say, bangers.
Oh yeah.
The this one it's a great song. I really love I love her vocals in this song, but
it's not an attention getter though.
But it's definitely not. This is a very subdued track to be a single. But having said that, like if you put all 3 tracks on together and played as like a little EP, they all flow together fine.
For sure.
It's just an interesting choice as a single. I don't know. I feel like they announced this album. It feels like 3 months ago. It probably wasn't that long ago. But with every subsequent single, I've just been really, really, really hyped for this one. This is one of the ones that I had on my list for this quarter that I was really excited for. So looking forward to it. I don't know what else to really say about them. They're this very ethereal kind of, I hear elements of like, not like the heavy, like early 90s Seattle grunge, but like sort of the mid 90s post grunge, stuff. Like I hear sort of that sound in there. Everybody throws the shoegaze word around. There's a little bit of that in there. It's just a really, really cool sound. I'm excited for it.
Well, and if there's a criticism of Pool Kids, it's that a lot of their early material so far has felt kind of uneven. And so I think a lot of people are hoping that this is the record where they pull it all together and create, a true complete work. And I think this band has shown all the potential to do it. I'm really excited for it as well. And yeah, the first 3 tracks don't do anything to kind of mute that for me.
Right. Yep, I'm with you.
So that brings us, last but not least, to a podcast favorite. Again, thanks to you, Militarie Gun. They released a song called BADIDEA, Bad Idea. And that record, God Save the Gun, they announced that record is coming out October 17th.
Super, super excited for this. I love everything this band has put out. I'm an enormous fan. I've talked about Ian Shelton being one of the more charismatic frontmen in rock music, period, no matter what the genre. He is just one of these guys that knows how to command attention and draw you in and make you feel like you want to be a part of whatever it is they're doing. But did you watch the video for this?
I did. It's really fun.
Unbelievable video. And, it's an interesting concept. Like, the song's kind of talking about, he's a person who a lot of his music is centered around, his brother's incarceration in prison. He's been surrounded by addiction his entire life. And so he knows all of those pitfalls. And then he found himself falling into those same pitfalls. And he talked a little bit about knowing like, okay, I know this is bad for me, but I'm going to like run headfirst into it anyways, and trying to examine like, why did I fall into addiction myself? And
well, let me interrupt you there because I was reading about this and I pulled something from, he talked to Revolver.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrically, the album is said to be an absurdist guide to the intersection of self-destruction and self-belief, with Shelton taking stock of addiction struggles he's had, and then he says, "I'm well aware that being this vulnerable turns my personal trauma into a marketing hook for this album, but I'm fine with it if not provoking it. Over the past couple years, as I spoke about addiction from the perspectives of someone affected by it, I became the one struggling with it. But there's a farcical logic to entering a situation fully knowing the consequences and doing it anyway. But that's where my head was when I started leaning on drinking."
Yeah, that last part was the part I had read. But that whole quote is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and that's he's like I hate to lean in on a guy's struggles,
Yeah.
but he just can't help himself but be interesting and
Yeah.
compelling and well spoken and well thought out and introspective. And by the time he puts it into the music, even if it's a sillier song or something that comes off a little bit silly, like BADIDEA, I priding
Yeah.
myself on being able to spell that. It makes the music, it raises my personal investment in the music. Even when it's
Yeah.
something silly, I feel more from it because I'm bought in on him and his story and the way he talks around his music.
Yeah, that's so well said. This is the point where you say, "Hi, Instagram Reels," because that you're gonna clip that one for sure. That's a good one. Of course, I just ruined it, but no, but it's a slippery slope, and I love that he has the self-awareness to talk about the realization that talking about his personal trauma is a slippery or can be used as a marketing hook, and being self-aware of that is something that I think a lot of people lack who have tried to do similar things to this. Like, a lot of people have talked about this kind of a thing but done it in a way that comes across, cheesy or self-important, lacking self-awareness. And I think that everything he said in that statement sort of codifies that just in his being and who he is. And I think this video really does a great job of showcasing both sides of that. What did he say? Self belief and self destruction. Like, you sort of see those two things happening and constantly coinciding in the background and the foreground in this video as it shifts perspectives as the camera sort of moves through the room. It's a really cool concept, a really well done video, and the song itself is great too. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I was disappointed to find out that Nick Cogan from Drug Church is no longer in Military Gun. That made me a little sad because I loved his guitar leads that he added to that. Taylor Young did not produce this album, which surprised me because he's produced, I'm pretty sure, everything else Military Gun has put out. So, I think maybe Ian's trying to do something a little different here with this and moving things a little bit different. Like, you hear this song, you're not going to think like, oh, this doesn't sound like Military Gun. Like, it definitely does. But I think it's just interesting in what he's, even like the production of this album and the setting of this album, I think is going to be really interesting. And I've been kind of curious since his brother got out of jail to see like what direction is he going to go in lyrically, and what is he going to talk about next. And this was just kind of you're not happy to see him have to go through this, but it's interesting to see him talking about sort of his journey and some of the issues that he's dealt with recently.
And again, the self-awareness is just apparent because I I tend to personalize everything and think about everything in my own lens, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like one of those things where if you've ever disclosed something to a family member or a friend, something that you needed to get off your chest, and you kind of wanted to tell somebody so that you get that relief, but then you didn't want it to become a part of the permanent record. You didn't want it to become a
Yeah.
constant source of conversation or a continuing part of you wanted to bury it by talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yeah.
knows that in a band, lyrically making it part of this, he's inviting, not only he doesn't get to bury it. And I find that really brave because I think we've all been in a situation where, whether we're admitting something we're not proud of or something that we feel like we're finally beyond or something that we're being done with, we don't want that to be sometimes we don't want that to be part of the ongoing narrative of our
I think,
lives.
yeah, for sure. I think about how hard it is to be vulnerable to one person. It's
Oh
incredibly
yeah.
difficult, just to tell one person about something, some vulnerability in your life, somewhere where you've fallen short is very difficult. Now imagine writing this on an album and sharing it with the entire world and being like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I'm going through, and this is sort of where I've fallen short. And like you said, now it's on the permanent record. Like, this is the thing that people are going to be talking about with Ian for a while. And
Interviewers, fans,
yeah,
everybody.
he's going to have to talk about it over and over and over again in this album cycle. And I think you used the word bravery, and I think that is the right word. I think it's incredibly brave. I really do. And there's an artistic way to do it that feels genuine, and there's an attention grabbing way that doesn't feel as genuine. And with Ian, I just don't get any sense whatsoever of it being the attention side. I really feel all in on the genuine side with him, because if you've ever seen any interview with Ian, he is one of the most down to earth, genuine people that I've ever seen as a frontman in music. Like, he's just a very interesting character in a sea of fascinating characters.
And it's paid off. I mean, he even talked about, I saw them open up for Manchester Orchestra in Boston last year, and he talked about how he didn't know Andy Hull from Manchester Orchestra at all, but just admired the work and put himself out there, sent off an email, and all of a sudden Andy's singing on their record and they're opening up for them on tour. And everybody to some degree fears rejection and fears all those kinds of things. And I think it just speaks to what you're talking about with the genuine way he carries himself all the time. And it shines through. It just really does. I don't want to overstate it, but it's just
I don't think
example after example after example.
Yeah, I don't think we're close to overstating it. I really don't. I am a huge fan of this band, in particular Ian's music. So I am biased, of course, but I don't think we're blowing smoke up his ass or anything here. Like, I think we're just talking about truly, like, just the way he connects with people. It's just different. We've talked about this so many times with so many different artists. There are just different artists who just have that and you can't really describe it. It's not necessarily always a tangible thing. They just have this thing that allows them to just connect with audiences, and it's such an important part of being a front person in music. There's plenty of incredible singers who we've seen the opposite of, that they lack that charisma, and you just feel that distance when you see them live, when you see interviews with them. There's just a distance with them. Whereas with Ian, it's like, you just want to be his friend. Like, every interview you see, the interviewer by the end, like, just wants to be his friend, because that's just the type of engaging and genuine personality that he is.
It's another thing that happened over the past weekend was My Chemical Romance played the stadium in New Jersey. I can't remember what the current branding is around the stadium, but they had Death Cab open up, and they also had Thursday open up. They turned it into this big like indie rock showcase and extended their platform to all these kind of the greatest bands from the greatest indie rock bands or emo bands or whatever from the last 20 years. But when we're talking about Ian Shelton, it makes me think of Jeff Rickley, because like totally different guys, totally different bands, totally different eras kind of, but Jeff Rickley is the same way, where he puts it all out there and he's just so happy now, and you just can't help but rooting for him and feeling like you're on his team.
When you see Thursday live, and when Jeff, at some point, he will often have these moments where he just talks to the crowd. Sometimes it's about the next song, sometimes it's just what's been going on with the band or him, but he just like talks to the crowd, and like, you feel this moment, like, you're just like, you feel like you're all just friends, like, getting together, and he's like bringing you up to speed. And the last time I saw them, it's been a while now, but the last time I saw them, he did a little thing before Autumn Leaves Revisited, and he talked about his grandpa who had passed away and what that song meant to him and how it tied. And it was like, I've never heard an artist so openly express like what this song was and what it meant to them, and then play the song right after it and just send chills all over your body. I mean, yeah, you're spot on that. Let me, real quick, we got a couple extra minutes here. Let me spring a question for you that I actually had forgotten about, but I thought of in the moment as I was listening. Did you listen to IndieCast last week?
Yes.
Or this week? What'd you think of Steven's comments about Death Cab? I was curious to get your take on his poo-pooing of Death Cab and how you felt about that. Did you think his criticisms were fair, or did you think maybe not so much? I was just kind of curious what you thought about his comments about Death Cab, because I know Death Cab's a very important band to
Big
you.
time. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, he kind of really dismissed them to some degree as more of a flash in the pan or not having an iconic moment or an iconic song. And to some degree, I kind of get where he's coming from. I do think that there's some of you had to be there with Death Cab for Cutie, and but then again, I also see that how that band is being passed from now that a lot of the hardcore fans are parents, and I see younger and younger families going to the show, including mine. I think it when a band is that important to so many people, even without that iconic song, like even I think of Dashboard Confessional. They had the Spider-Man 2 song or whatever, right? And so they had that one iconic hit that goes above and beyond their hardcore following that sang every word to every song and made them an important band in so many people's lives. But I don't think it's that song that makes Dashboard Confessional the band that they are today that extends to future generations. And I don't think the fact that Death Cab lacks that one big hit or that one incendiary hit, and you could Ian Cohen made the argument that I Will Follow You Into the Dark is that song, but I don't think that song necessarily describes Death Cab very well as a band anyway.
Yeah.
But so I disagree with him, but not like violently or angrily. I just feel like I understand where it comes from, but I disagree.
Wasn't I Will Possess Your Heart, wasn't that a pretty big song too? I feel like that
Yes.
song was everywhere. I felt like that's where like I kind of disagreed with Stephen a little bit. Like I don't
And also
think
the
those.
Postal Service, I think, kind of counts in the legacy.
Yeah, sure. But like I get his point in that, neither of those songs are like decade defining songs. When you think of the first decade of the 2000s, I don't think you would immediately think like, "Oh, I have to make sure I Will Possess Your Heart," or I will follow. I always
I
forget
Will
that
Follow
I
You
will
Into the
follow you
Dark.
into the dark. I don't think your immediate thought. Maybe I proved the point that I can never remember the name of that song, but But like, I don't think it would immediately jump to your mind. But anybody who was like into the music scene in the 2000s, as soon as somebody's like, "Well, what about Death Cab?" You'd be like, "Oh yeah, we have to have a Death Cab song on there." And yeah, so you'd probably go with "I Will Follow You Into the Dark," but it was just interesting. I thought like I am a very distant, casual Death Cab fan. I think to your point, if I didn't know you, if we weren't friends, I probably would have never gone back and listened to them. Like I missed that moment in
Mhm.
that time. Like I wasn't listening to that kind of music at that time, and it is so like there is an aspect of it like because I wasn't there, I'll never feel that same connection. But I I don't know. Like I just felt like, and maybe there's even some truth to what Steven was saying too about like some of their later albums being very uneven. And I do think that there's some truth to that, even as a casual Death Cab fan. Like I don't think they stack up the way those the first handful of albums with, and they lost guitarist, I
Chris
believe
Walla,
Chris
who was
Wallow.
also their producer.
Yeah, so that's a big loss, obviously. So obviously things are going to be different and sound different. But I think to just call them like boring and uninteresting, that was the part I didn't really like. That just kind of, I was like, I don't know. I feel like that's being a little harsh to a band that was incredibly important to a particular scene and movement. And there are so many fans that were listening to that kind of indie and emo music in that time, to which Death Cab is incredibly important. And I don't know. I just felt that was a little bit of a weak criticism on my part. But I was just kind of curious your thoughts, because
Yeah.
as soon as I was listening, I was thinking about like, man, I wonder what Craig thinks about this.
Well, and it's interesting that you brought up "I Will Possess Your Heart" because as a part-time Pearl Jam podcast, I've always kind of felt like Narrow Stairs was Death Cab's Yield, where
Mm,
I wouldn't call it their very best record like you would call Yield Pearl Jam's best record, and we
yeah,
haven't had that conversation, so we will at some point.
yeah,
But I think Narrow Stairs was the one that everybody kind of forgot about, but it if you really critically sat down and looked at that record versus all the other Death Cab material, you could make the case that that is very, very much their best record, and it's overlooked just because they they'd already kind of peaked with transatlanticism, and I just don't think people were ready to take the ride. All the people that they brought on board weren't ready to take the ride to the next record.
Yeah, which is funny because for me, going backwards, I actually think that probably is my favorite album of theirs. I also really, really love that album. But I didn't have that. For me, it wasn't like going forward in time, it was going backwards in time. So it's always a little bit different. They had a song a couple of years ago, not too long ago, that came out that was really good too. What was that? Do you remember what that song was called? I'm putting you on the spot here, but
yeah, it's got a weird name. Foxglove Through the Clear Cut.
Yeah. That song was awesome. That was a great
Asphalt
song.
Meadows was like one of those return to form, not as good as their old stuff, but holy shit, this band might be a real band again.
Yeah. Yeah. It was solid, but that song, the Foxglove song, was just awesome. Yeah.
And there were a couple other good ones on there, but they're at the stage of their career where it's like if they add 2 or 3 songs that are worthwhile on every album, that's all you really need from them.
They've got the catalog already, so anything now is just bonus.
But you know what's really weird? I mean, I'm 46, so like I don't have much to talk about, but Ben Gibbard turned 49 like yesterday. And like I was lucky. So my Death Cab story is that I was lucky enough to I'm living in Boston. I'm at the tail end of my college career, and a friend of mine moved to Boston from Cleveland to attend MIT. And like a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, he was like, I'm going over to Cambridge to check out this band at the Middle East in Cambridge, this small club. And I got to see Death Cab like on their second album. And that's when I fell in love. And who knows if I don't see that show, if I don't fall in love with that band at that time. And that's where I do understand like the kind of, you had to be there. I couldn't imagine just jumping on board at transatlanticism and not having been through the first 2 records and everything else with that band. And so like it didn't make me viscerally angry when Stephen Hyden was saying all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he's also got a different musical vintage. I mean, I was watching even before they talked about it, I was watching the Billy Joel documentary on HBO. I'm only like 2 parts of the 5 parts through.
I haven't watched it yet, but
5 hours of Billy Joel, which it's fine. It's really interesting. But all of a sudden you hear a voice and you're like, oh my God, that's Stephen Hyden. So he's like out there talking about Billy Joel too. So he's just kind of a slightly different musical vintage than myself.
It's like what's really interesting. So I pulled up here looking at Death Cab's discography. Like it's really an impressive run. Like look at that early career. Something About Airplanes. We Have the Facts and We're Voting Yes. The Photo album, which I don't know if I've ever listened to the Photo album. I don't know that I'm familiar with that one.
Good.
I don't remember that one. Interesting. But then Transatlanticism, Plans and Narrow Stairs, Codes and Keys, and then like the later part of their career after that. But like that beginning run there is actually like really impressive. Like when you look back, like I just think I just think it's like really selling them short. Like this is not a one hit, one album wonder of a band. Like they put out an incredible run of material there. So anyways.
No, I appreciate you bringing it up because it was threatening to be the world's shortest album record podcast.
God forbid we be under an hour.
I know.
But yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody listening. You can find everything we do at albumofrecord.com. We're on all the social media sites. YouTube continues to be one of our biggest podcasting platforms, so make sure you go check us out there. I promise to put our headshots in the thumbnails from now on so that it pops to the top of your screen. And we'll talk to you next time. Enjoy Pool Kids. This has been the Album of Record podcast.